We open on a small, white stone room. Books and decorative blankets adorn the floor and walls. The smell of some heady, woody incense permeates the air. The flicker of 1,000 wicks that have been burning for hours on end struggle to keep themselves alight as a dark form brushes past them. We see a figure, cerulean skin and even deeper midnight blue hair that billows down to the floor, whirls around in this space. He plucks a golden teacup from a shelf and gracefully drops onto a circular golden pillow on the floor, in front of an open window. His hair waves and swirls like a disturbed oil sheen on the surface of water, before coming to rest at his back. His eyes, mint blue, piercing and soothing, widen unnaturally past the confines of the socket and into the golden markings on his forehead as he begins to hum into the night sky before him. A blue, oily sheen, not unlike the one present in his hair, begins to stretch across the threshold of the window, and he waits patiently until an image begins to appear. A woman. A woman, just like the rest of them, walks down a craggy mountain path with a sizable pack on her back. She struggles to carry it, but a burning determination in her eyes gives her strength enough to forge ahead. She trips on a small rock and smacks her hands hard onto a nearby boulder to save herself. The blue figure shudders as the image flashes over and over with fragments of the same moment, each slightly different than the last. One shows her missing the boulder entirely, falling to her doom as she tumbles end over end down the mountainside. Another shows her using only one hand, and the force of the impact breaks her wrist. The blue figure sips from his teacup, and we see that the woman cradles her hand like a baby bird. Trudging her way down the mountain, but less aware of her surroundings, her need to dull her perception of pain dulls the rest of her perception as well. She doesn't hear the four-legged beast sneaking up on her, stalking her until she is in just the perfect spot for an ambush. The creature lunges at her, taking her to the ground, and the image flits back to the woman, with both of her hands firmly planted on the boulder. She dusts herself off and keeps moving. The blue man lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Osaki!" A voice calls from behind him. It's sharp and demanding, like when someone snaps a book closed in on itself. He turns as he stands, a small grin spreading across his face to meet his visitor. She is radiant in the candlelight, a visage of lilac and silver standing firm in the doorway to this room. Glittering silver stars adorn a rather simple but elegant floor-length purple gown. A massive afro of silver surrounds her head and covers her equally silvered eyes, though Osaki knows her sight is all-encompassing. Well, almost. 2 horns defiantly sprout from her scalp and curve backwards and in, almost touching, almost creating a halo above her head like the angel he finds her to be. She cradles a thin but tall book in one arm. The other hangs loosely at her side. "We need to talk." The sound of pages flipping echoes into the room as she steps forward into it. Osaki cups his tea in both hands as he turns back to the vision of the woman making her way down the mountain.
"She's heading west. Do you think she's going to make it? I know she will, but isn't it fun to see all the ways she could do it? How she could possibly persevere through this plight, or even how close she came to not..."
The sound of breaking porcelain strikes Osaki's ears like a crack of lightning as purple blurs across the room and the teacup is ripped from his grip. A hand presses to his throat and he is forced to the ground. Still, the smile doesn't fade from his lips. It is time. There is no malice, no contempt in her tone. Her words are simply true, but a quiver of her lip betrays her.
"Oh, Baku. After all this time, why now should I let you have me?"
The grip around Osaki's throat tightens, and a sharp-toothed grin escapes from silvered lips. Because I know just how tired you are, how bored of this existence you are, and that makes you useless to me. Her words are poisonous, but she's desperately trying to ignore the burning sensation that threatens to create a hole in her throat.
It's like you see right through me, love.
One blue pinky finger plays delicately with her bangs. A measured growl rumbles in Baku's throat. The goddess of knowledge has only been bested by one other in her life, and yet, with him here at her mercy, she still cannot feel the thrill of victory as she should.
Go on then. Take what you came here for.
Lilac fingers slip between the pages of the book she had been holding to find the hilt of a dagger, neatly concealed. It is dark and waved metal, cold to the touch and absolutely beautiful. Red gems adorn the hilt, glistening in the candlelight as if always sprayed with blood.
Oh. My dear cousin's not going to be happy about this, now is he?
What he doesn't know won't hurt him. Baku muses as she presses the tip of the blade to Osaki's stomach.
True. But as a parting gift, know this. You will never be able to wield my power, not until you find my last semblance of it, and finish the job.
Blue, shaking hands grasp the dagger and pull it into himself with such force that every candle in the room is blown out all at once. Inky, dark water spills out from the windowsill and drips down, down, down into nothingness. And as Osaki's body hurtles towards an unforgiving earth, it begins to rain. How far would you go to protect your loved ones? To prove your worth to them? How far are you willing to push yourself in the name of retaining your humanity? What would it take to get you to sacrifice it willingly? Would you hurt others? Hurt yourself? Would you break the heart of the very person you swore to keep safe? Would you break the world? Would you kill God? This is the story of one man as he fights against the currents of his better nature to remain the protector he believes himself to be. This is the story of a mortal as he is pushed to the edge of his morality, as he is pushed to seek punishment against the gods for their crimes against their creation, against him. This is Godkiller Retribution. Vos, you awaken to the pitter-patter of rain hitting the roof of your small but homely abode. Your head aches with the dull dissatisfaction of a poor night's sleep. Once again, you've dreamed of people you've never met, in places you've never been to, laughing, crying, living, dying. As you rub your temples, you focus on the sounds of the water cascading around you to ground you, bring you back to the here and now. Rain brings its own challenges in the Udanu Mountains. For most, it is a very dangerous time. Mud or rock slides are the true threat with every big storm. The crags and paths become very slippery, and visibility can be very poor. Yes, when it rains, most people hunker down and stay inside, finally accomplishing abandoned tasks and chores they've been meaning to do. But you are not most, and you know that if you don't go out, you and your neighbors will be out of meat for the next few days. There is a small vanity with a basin for water, and a beautiful, elaborately crafted silver mirror hung up on the wall behind it. Who do we see as you get up and stand in front of the mirror to wash your face? And what does your home look like here in Yali?
As he stands up, he walks forward. The first thing that no one would notice is that he makes no sound. He glides, almost floating across the room, but his feet do touch dark stone. When he reaches the mirror, he looks at himself, and there's kind of a blurred edges effect. He sees himself how others would for just a moment, and it could be tiredness, it could be something else, but there's a moment where he's specter-like, just this gray, formless outline of a thing, and then he focuses on some of the harder lines. These dark, black, somewhat curled strands of hair that fall down his face. And they're kind of a dull black. They don't really catch light if there was light. And then the features of his face come into focus, and we see a completely monochromatic being, like a newspaper cutout. He is gray, largely unlined, a deep gray, all the way to his eyes as he pushes strands of hair out of the way. We see dark gray eyes, only a shade darker than his skin, perhaps 2 shades lighter than the black pupils. Brows that seem to furrow, though they make no crease, in his strangely ageless face. Somewhat pursed lips, with a thin mustache connected to a beard that comes to 3 points, one just peeking out of his chin, bringing his chin to a point. And then following along the edges of his jaw, it comes to 2 other softer points at the points of his jaws. And we see long ears that go out to the side, but not particularly swept back in any way, just straight out of either side of his head. Kind of empty in a way, like they're waiting for something that's normally rested on them. Underneath that, we see he begins to get dressed, I think, in the mirror, making sure everything is in place, everything looks right, but it's very routine. He doesn't put on a shirt, but instead a dark gray and black poncho with a very simple pattern of line work on it, nothing that would stand out in a crowd, over dark pants, black boots. As he locks eyes with himself, I think he comes fully into focus. And he reaches out with his right hand without actually looking. He just feels, he knows exactly where this is. On his little desk next to the mirror is resting a very unremarkable, very well-worn, wide-brimmed black hat that he gently places on top of his head, and it seems to shadow across his eyes, almost forming like a natural domino mask in a way, and it rests perfectly on top of his ears. He clutches at something. You see there's a cord around his neck, and he was wearing it as he slept as well. There's just a simple black cord. And he reaches and he pulls out this very small, white, vaguely opalescent crystal at the end of that cord. And he makes sure that it's on the outside of the poncho. And he turns, and you see a somewhat Spartan living situation. It's not exactly a cave, though I think it is built into the side of the cliff face somewhat. It only juts out ever so slightly from the mountains themselves. You see that everything has a place. The chair in front of the desk, but no other chairs, no other furniture in the room that could support more than one person at a time. And there may even be some space for such a thing, but no evidence that there was ever anything occupying that space, at least not for a very long time. Everything is comfortable. There's some attention to style. It's not like he sprung for the cheapest sheets he could possibly get. Just like a level above that. You get the impression that this is a place that is lived in by someone who could maybe afford something nicer, but prefers to fill this smaller space with a few steps, maybe several steps below luxury, but not quite into the realm of someone who has no care at all for his surroundings.
But I think you do see, as your eyes sort of look over the space that you occupy day in and day out, just reviewing it, there are a couple elements that don't fit. The mirror above the vanity, highly ornate, highly luxurious, of a metal that doesn't occupy any of the other metals that take up this house. Some cutlery left out on the counter, equally as beautifully crafted and detailed. There are glints of things that one wouldn't attribute to you upon first meeting you.
Yeah, and there's a reason, a strange essence of a reason why that would be. Because he moves around this space like he doesn't occupy it very much. He almost seems like a ghost sort of residually haunting his own home as he goes through the motions of making a warm beverage, making coffee. If that's something they would have here, I think he goes through the motion of making it. The ritual of it is more involved than actually drinking it out of his little stone cup. But he brings it past him into a doorway that leads sort of deeper into the actual like mountainside that this is built into. And when he opens that door and walks inside, that's when everything comes into focus. And you see a wider cave-like chamber that seems to have been carved out by hand for the most part. There is an entire area of silvered hooks where carcasses of various beasts and a few stranger beasts are hanging in various stages of either preservation or being broken down for their meat, for their hides. He's using everything. There are tools meticulously placed, nice ones, very, very nice ones. But up above everything, I think hanging on a hand-carved wooden display piece, high up above, it's the first thing that would draw your eye if you were to walk into this room, and he looks straight at it. Presiding over the room is a spear with a smooth, straight wooden shaft that has been dyed black. A very simple but perfectly sharpened, honed spear point at the end. And right below that spear point are 2 feathers that are tied to it, one black and one white. And he steps into this chamber. And I think a chamber is the correct word for what this place is. And he moves with a little more confidence in this space. He looks at everything, that flowing nature of his body, the gracefulness of his movements like smoke become rigid and fast, almost predatory as he takes in everything he needs for the day. Reaching for different tools, small knives that he conceals within his belt, within his pockets, underneath his poncho. He grabs something, takes a sip, grabs something, takes a sip. And every turning of that motion, it's like he becomes more solid, and his steps make more sound, and his movements more precise. And the last thing he does before leaving this chamber is grabs his spear, sets it in place, sheathed at his back. But I think we would see him taking the time to really thoroughly wash this cup, this simple, unremarkable coffee cup. Dry it completely and place it back on its shelf exactly where it was before he leaves. And throughout this entire process, vocally, he doesn't make a single sound.
You place the cup back in its spot on the shelf. You exit your house, very carefully but deliberately closing the door and locking it behind you. You look out into the neighborhood, if you can call it that, before you. You only really have one direct neighbor. The sky is ever dark. No light emanates from anywhere except for the abode directly across from you. It is raining, but it's not windy. So the droplets are coming down hard and fast vertically, which allows for your one and only neighbor, Essie, to sit on her rocking chair as she often does, watching the rain, taking it in. You only notice her because of the single lantern that she's lit, cascading an orange glow down onto her, and the glint of her eyes, already watching you, catches your attention. She's a elderly Corva woman. She has white and gray feathers with a yellow beak that we can only see due to the lantern light. Her eyes bright blue, staring at you as she takes feathered hands holding her own coffee cup and brings it up to her beak and takes a sip, greeting you. This is a regular occurrence between the two of you. She doesn't say anything to you until you greet her. She respects out of everyone in Yali, she respects how you move the most. She seems to understand how you like to do things, how you like to be seen, how you like to not be seen. And she's the only person left in Yali that seems to always see you, no matter what, though. You can never escape her gaze. And you've often had nights where you wonder long and hard about that fact, but she never does anything with it. She just is pleasant. She helps you, you help her. It's a friendly, amicable relationship. And it's just another one of those days where she's just waiting to see if you want to interact with her.
There's a moment of transition that happens here. Inside, he seemed to view himself in the third person in a strange sort of way. Like, again, those blurred outlines of a man trying to come into focus. They blurred again when he exited his chamber. And he began to move with that noiseless, fluid grace of someone who is used to not being seen, not being heard. But her eyes are so sharp and present in the same way every time that when they find him, they find me, and I, solid in this moment, turn my head, forcing it to be slower than it naturally wants to be when I focus on something that has spotted me. And the place where a crease between his furrowed brows would be, if there was one, uncreases. He reaches into the folds of his poncho. I reach into the folds of my poncho and pull out this very small tin that's wrapped with twine. I approach her, making a point to actually allow my feet to collide with the ground hard enough to make a sound, and it takes some effort. And I walk up to her, and I hand it to her in both hands. I cup it, even though it's very small. I have been down the mountain this past week. I thought perhaps your sardines would be getting low. Unless I am mistaken about your schedule, ma'am.
She sets down her cup momentarily on the small end table beside her, and she, with one wing, takes the can of sardines. She smells it, inspects it, her head cocking every which direction, like the bird she is, and then she clicks her beak together a couple times, which you know to be her way of chuckling. That's why you're my favorite. And then she picks up the coffee cup in both hands again. You going out today?
Strange, I thought I already was out.
You are drenched already, just from walking from point A to point Essie. And she clucks her beak a couple more times. She doesn't say anything. She just looks at you with a mischievous quirk to her eyes.
The tight line of his mouth tries to stretch, kind of creaks against the effort of it, but it gets there, and the eyes are very slow to follow. Though it takes work, it is genuine by the time it actually arrives on his face. Yes.
Well, be careful. It hasn't rained this hard in, I want to say, months. Wouldn't want you getting caught up in a flood. Who would bring me my sardines?
I think there's a moment looking at her face, at the warmth of it, where that warmth is grating against the still very present after image of those dark dreams that are sort of stabbing at the corners of my mind. It's incongruous in a way that I don't feel comfortable with. And even though this is, again, probably the only person who regularly, warmly makes a point to interact with me, at least in this way, I think something ominous is tugging at my insides that I don't like. And I want to try to ground myself somewhat, to lean into this innate sense of suspicion that I have of anyone whose attention is on me. Even this person who largely I would say that I trust. Overall, I need the exercise in my mind. I need to force insight. So I think I'm going to try to feel her out.
Feel someone or something out? When you try to feel out a person, place, or thing, say what you want clarity about and answer one. The GM will give you the clarity you seek as they answer the other. So, you want clarity about her true attitude or intentions towards you today? In general?
I think I am searching for something to explain the warmth. Something, whether it confirms that it's just her way of getting what she wants from me, my continuing to give her some of the spoils of my journeys, or whether there's something darker, if she's suspicious of me. I'm searching for anything other than, no, she actually does like me.
Okay. Would you rather answer what feels welcoming on the surface or what feels dark or unnerving when you peer deeper?
Well, the latter is the thing that I want to know. So the former is definitely more obvious. What feels welcoming is that warmth, because it is welcome. It's a part of my routine now, and ordinarily I wouldn't question it. But today I'm inclined to, because today feels like a day where I need to put warmth back on a shelf with my coffee cup so I can do what I have to. The routine is welcome. Normally, I'm trying to uninvite it from my mind.
I think what feels dark or unnerving is you look at her and you instantly know that she knows that something is weird about today. The rain is hard and heavy out of nowhere, with no wind. But as it relates to you, you look into her eyes and she knows that you had another series of dreams and nightmares. Not necessarily that you had those dreams and nightmares, but that something is weighing on you heavier today. Something is different about you today. You both know each other well enough to be able to tell when something is amiss with each other. And she is trying to warn you to be extra careful because she's worried about you in a very grand maternal way. But it's unnerving to you that she's that sharp, that she thinks something could go wrong today and wrong with you when you have the reputation you have and the responsibility you have and the track record that you have.
Sharp eyes that take in everything can be dangerous to one so kind. I imagine your mind is full enough without worries in my name. I will carry your warmth with me today, but try to keep some for yourself. I bow my head, waiting for leave to turn away.
I think she studies you for too long, at least to you. Might be a few seconds, but that's a few seconds too long. And just a feathered hand just sort of pats you on the chest because she's reaching up to you. And she looks like she wants to say something, but she bites it back and tries to hide it with her chuckle, her clicking of her beak. And then she just sort of waves her hand dismissively. Go on, get. The sky's not gonna get any lighter.
I look up, straight into it for a moment. No, I suppose not. I tip the brim of my hat toward her and turn back to that gliding gait. And as I walk away, I return to those noiseless footsteps with a blank expression on my face.
And what you don't see is when you turn away, she sort of hangs her head and shakes it before going back to just rocking in her chair and sipping her morning coffee. You trudge maybe half an hour away from the closest town, which would be Yali, your hometown, born and raised, up into the mountains where you know more lucrative game resides. The rain still pours down heavy, and when you look up towards the sky or towards the horizon, the dark, pitch black of the you don't know what above you is punctuated by sheets and sheets of raindrops that look gray to your eyes. Do you have a source of light with you? Do you carry maybe like a hand lantern or a torch or anything like that? Or do you keep everything dark to remain as stealthy as possible?
Am I able to see in the dark well enough?
You are. As an NUV, you are able to see in this pitch black world. Everything looks monochrome and shades of gray to light gray to white to black, but you're able to see everything. The rain is what's making it hard.
Yeah. Honestly, I think no. A lantern in general is too bulky. I require speed and precision for what I do. much more than strength. And so everything I carry is light and concealable. And if it has no utility to me on a normal day, it's not something I would think to plan for, is needing more light than I need to see. And in my mind, fire isn't going to help me with rain anyway. The rain will put it out. So, no. I rely, as I always do, on my eyes. It's been enough so far.
The rain makes it hard to find and track any potential prey you might have gotten. It takes you about double the time to find a lead. Many of the denizens of the Udanu Mountains are reptilian and very well versed in living amongst the cragginess of the mountains and staying hidden. But eventually you are able to identify a potential prey item large enough to satisfy what you're looking for today, to satisfy multiple people. And as you follow it, you're going deeper and deeper into the more rocky aspects of the mountain. The terrain is slippery from the rain, and it would be hard to navigate normally as the terrain is so uneven. I think there's a moment where you lose the trail just for a little bit. You spend maybe about 3 to 5 minutes trying to see if you can search the surrounding area and pick it up again. And when you don't, you're about to turn back when something from behind you makes a shifting noise. And as you turn around to look back at it, you see what you were tracking flying at you full body to try to attack you. What would you like to do?
Before I engage in combat here, Essie's words are ringing in my mind, and they've been a distraction this entire time. Be careful. It's not a sentiment that I think on most of the time. It's instinctual. I know I'm good at what I do. Careful is implied in my mandate. But today, with this extra impairment making it harder for me to see, hearing it from someone else and knowing that it was genuine and from a place of care, they've stuck to a buried part of him that is still very much present. And I think because of that, I'd like to look for some advantage because I was ready for surprise. I was ready for something because I was told to be careful. And this entire time, I'm going to do what I'm told.
Ooh, I like that very much. When you do as you're told, say how you show submission and answer 1. The GM will show you a glimpse of their true intentions as they answer the other. So this is not typically how this move would work, but I like the thought process enough that we're going to go with it. How do you intend with an action here to show submission, quote unquote, to Essie's warning? And then which one would you like to answer? How are you rewarded, or what vulnerability do you reveal?
The vulnerability that I reveal is that I am still capable of fear.
Damn.
I'm not afraid of death for death's sake. I'm not afraid of injury. I'm not afraid of whatever this creature is. I'm afraid of what happens to everyone else if I die. And this is the smallest glimmer, the only glimmer in a very long time, years, that I have felt that might even be on the table. That death, injury, just not succeeding on a hunt. It's like breathing. It's easy. That nagging doubt and that warning and that warmth beneath the warning, that the longer it sits in me, the better it feels. The vulnerability is that regardless of the source, this creature probably became aware of me because I actually am afraid.
How are you rewarded? I think you are on high alert enough that it was not a total ambush. This creature lunges at you and is sailing through the air, but it's doing so from considerably far away. I think it overestimated how fast it would actually get to you, and you're able to dodge out of the way well enough that it completely sails past you. It would be comical if you were not so concerned with your own safety. And it lands and it tumbles until it skitters up onto its four legs and looks at you and starts to reassess you, starts to stalk you all over again. You see that this is a drua. It is a large reptilian creature with a long tail and a sort of stunted snout. Its teeth are small, but it has a venomous paralytic bite, which is what makes it so dangerous. It is an ambush hunter, so it can get that bite off on its prey and wait for the venom to paralyze, and then they can go in for the kill, often devouring their prey piece by piece while they're still alive. It's about as tall as you are from the tip of its tail to its head. So this would be, if you're able to subdue it, exactly what you're looking for. The hide would make such great armors and protective skins for water. The meat would satisfy so many of your neighbors. The venom sacs can be used when diluted as a painkiller. I think there is a part of you that, while you are being careful and afraid, you have been unnerved by Essie this morning, there is a part of you that is relieved that it is a drua specifically, because of how multi-purpose this animal is, if you're able to take it down. It begins to scramble up slowly, taking you in, sizing you up. Rocks, ready to strike again. What would you like to do?
When I move out of the way, when it leaps, it's a spin. My right arm reaches up to where the spear is sheathed, and at the end of the spin, in a blur of motion, the spear is out. It comes out with the momentum of that move, and then lands with it out in this open position, almost parallel to the arm that's holding it. The spear tip pointed out, ever so slightly angled toward the ground, with my chest exposed, arms out in a welcoming pose. And I stand and I wait for a moment as it sizes me up. And then I reach to my poncho and I flourish it ever so slightly. this flutter of motion that is timed with the wind so that it catches this thing's attention. I want it to leap at me again. And knowing that it's going to, I want to seize the opportunity to step out of the way the same way I did before, but slash at its underbelly as it passes, which I think would be an inflict violence.
I would say it is an inflict violence. I would also argue that it is tempt fate, as this is a particularly risky move to let it strike you, or try to strike you again before you try to strike it. You're letting it encroach rather than you take the initiative in this instance.
My thought process is that it's probably ready for me to make a strike. Whereas if I strike at it while it's in midair, while it's leaping, it's not on guard anymore. It's all out, it's jumping by me. So it might be a better opportunity. It's maybe a high risk, high reward situation in my mind.
That sounds like tempt fate to me, because this sort of leaping motion is this creature's bread and butter. It is what it relies on to make its kills. So I would say you're tempting fate by letting it do that again. So when you tempt fate with your actions, say what perilous feat you're trying to accomplish and roll 2d6. Add 1 for each true statement. A skilled ally is lending you a hand? No. You have no other options. You did. So, no. You're far from any god that wishes you harm. Yes. So you can add 1 to this roll.
Okay. That is a 6 and a 1. Plus 1 is going to be 8.
All right. On a hit 7 to 9, you get through it mostly unscathed. The fates spare you for now. All right. So basically, you just do it. You just do exactly what you want, mostly unscathed. I do think you're not going to get the venomous bite. I think you are going to take maybe a tail thwap to the leg or something, but it will be minor. It will be the tail instinctually hitting as this thing meets your spear. How would you like to introduce your spear to this Drua?
My goal was to slash across its belly, like pierce in and drag across as it leapt past. If I was unable to do that, was I unable to do that?
No, you're able to do that.
Okay, that would be how the spear was intended to. Just jab up and then lightly drag across against the momentum of it gliding past.
The thing about Drua is their skin is incredibly tough. Mm-hmm. I think you're able to get one good pierce in, and as you try to drag it down the belly of this thing, you would normally think that the belly is the softest part of any reptile, but this thing is low to the ground. Its belly scales are very tough, and you are able to slice, but not as deep as you would like. The tail thrashes wildly as it sort of hisses out in pain, and it does tap you on the thigh. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't impede you in any way, but it is a reminder that this thing is hurt but not down. I think it lands and tumbles, and it thrashes for a moment before it gets up, this time abandoning its typical ambush behavior, and it's starting to bound at you, just trying to get to you in any way before you can take it down. What would you like to do?
Then I'm gonna just try to be faster than if the thought process of trying to get it in a vulnerable position to attack carefully. There's this moment where I think like something switches back, where it goes, okay, trying to make this careful, calculated strike, this like interesting move. I don't think I was thinking of it as a tempt fate. It became so. And I'm realizing that now, that I was trying to be careful created a more dangerous situation. And now I'm thinking like, idiot, just do what you do. You're faster than this thing. So I would say I'm already trying to run at it to just make a quick jab at the most vulnerable spot that I can find, like as it's trying to get up. Like as soon as I'm aware that it didn't do quite what I wanted to, I'm running toward it.
So that, to me, sounds like inflict violence. When you inflict violence on someone, roll 2d6, add 1 for each true statement. They wish you harm? Absolutely. You're desperate? Are you desperate right now?
As much as I would love the +1, even though I have admitted that I am more afraid than usual, it's not enough to shake my confidence. I don't feel desperate. I don't think I'm about to die.
You're not desperate, but it is. So I will give you a +1 for its desperation, just because I think that's fun. And it's not personal in any deep sense. So roll 2d6 and add 2.
Okay, a 4 and a 2. So we're at 6. And then you said +2. So 8 again. I like 8s apparently.
On a hit 7 to 9, this part of the fight ends on your terms. How would you like to finish this thing?
As I snap back into focus, back into doing things my way, head on, relying on my speed and skill, there is something so morally precise about my actions. When I say morally precise, I mean that without having to try too terribly hard, if I'm in the zone, I am able to make a very, very fast adjustment to find the quickest, most efficient way to kill it without hurting it too much. As deadly as this creature is, as tough as it is, I still don't want it to suffer, but I also want to preserve the parts that I'm trying to harvest. So if this goes exactly my way is all of those conditions are met. It does not suffer, it dies very quickly, and I don't damage anything that I need. Ideally, maybe straight through the brain or throat.
This thing is squealing out in pain. If you had let it get up, it would have had a serious disadvantage to try to get back to you and attack you once more. I think you know, based on how much thrashing it's doing, the throat would be an easier target than directly through the brain, and you know exactly where to stab to sever its spinal cord without decapitating it and without damaging the venom sacs. And it lets out one final hiss, one final death rattle before it goes limp in your arms. Your work is over for today. All you have to do is bring it back to the butcher and let them take care of it.
You fought well, You fought well. But you are not my friend.
So you pick this thing up in whichever way you'd like. You can fireman carry it over your shoulders. You can drag it back, though that would probably not be advisable due to the wound on its stomach. You wouldn't want it to open further and have its insides decorate the mountainside. And you start to make your way back down to the butcher. It's about the time that you know that everyone will be gathering to do the sort of daily trades and business work. You expect it to be a little slower due to the rain, but the butcher is always there. Everybody needs to eat. The way to the sort of town square is back past your house, back past Essie. And as you make your way back, you take stock of your house. Everything looks the same. Nothing is out of place. There doesn't seem to be any leaks that you can tell from the outside, which has been a problem in the past, but you've done a good job of fixing them. And then you look over to Essie, and you see that she's talking to someone, but you can't quite make out who. They are standing just out of the radius of the lantern glow, shadowed by the darkness of the world. What would you like to do?
I would stay as much in the periphery of this person's vision as I can. I'm on alert, and I'm curious. I'm going to try to take advantage of my unnatural advantage. Stay right in the pocket of being unnoticed as best as I can, and take in as many details of this person as possible before I approach.
You see a man who looks much like yourself. He has darker gray skin with pointed ears. You know he looks NUV. He has sort of ear caps made of a dark reflective metal. It's one of the only things that do catch in the periphery of the lantern light. He has long, dark, wavy hair that has been sort of combed back behind his head. It falls down to the backs of his knees. He seems to, as you get a little bit closer, have a full beard that is well maintained. He's talking to Essie very politely, but there is a sort of sense of amusement on his face. I think he sort of shifts, and Essie shifts to match him, and a little bit of lantern light peeks past her head and onto him, and you see two bright silver irises looking down at her. He's wearing a very rich looking black shirt. It has sort of ruffles at the collar and down the ties that stitch the shirt closed at his chest. And he has ruffles sort of flowering over the backs of his palms at his cuffs. His pants are well fitted to him. They go up to his high waist, and he's wearing very well maintained leather shoes. At the closest that you get, you see he has two stripes of red at his eyes that sort of run up the bridge of his nose into his eyelids and out towards his temples. I would like for you to roll to recognize a god. When you want to recognize the signs or influence of a god of Koe, roll 2d6. Add 1 for each true statement. You're in or near their domain. Everywhere is his domain. So I would say yes. But you're not in sort of his central place of worship or a central place of worship. So I'm going to say no. You're familiar with their gospel. It would be very hard for you to not know his gospel. And it would be bad if you didn't know. In this moment, it wouldn't be bad. So I'm going to say you're rolling with a +1.
That is a 4, 5, +1, 6.
On a miss, the GM will tell you only the most common legends about them and nothing more. You know this is Etuvar. There is a otherworldly pull that is telling you, screaming at you, that this is Etuvar the Dark. He is the father of all vampires, and there is no sun in this world. There is no light in the sky. It is a black void when you look up, which means everything else is a dark world that is only populated with color when lanterns are lit, when fires burn. Everywhere, like I said, is his domain. And he's talking very politely, very friendly, very kindly to Essie, today of all days.
I should be afraid. But I forgot myself. Then I remembered. And I know now what I always know. I'm not afraid when I see a threat. So I just walk straight up to him. Make myself the third point of an equilateral triangle. And look him straight in the eye. My arms are crossed. But one hand, where it sits in the crook of the other arm, is at the folding point of the poncho. The sort of top of the V where the arm comes out on the side. And underneath that, there is a small concealed knife. My hand lingers near that when I approach. But I don't speak first. I just force myself in an unnatural motion to be seen.
Essie, hearing you approach, turns her attention to you, and then the very large lizard that is by your side. You left it at your doorstep. It's still on your shoulders. It's in plain view. And she sort of whistles, and she goes, "Well, this is why you are the best at your job, Quiet One. I was just talking to Mr. And she turns to Etuvar. And he had already turned his gaze slightly to you as you were walking up, but kept the conversation going with Essie.
Are you telling me he saw me before I made myself known?
He didn't see you before you made yourself known, but as you decided to approach in a way that would be noticeable, it was immediate.
Okay.
He immediately knew you were there.
Okay, because not knowing why, but knowing that I know who this is, somehow, supernaturally, I know who this is. I would try to be very aware of the moment I'm clocked, because I'm trying to like I'm used to not being seen. I can walk right up to somebody and not until I'm right there am I noticed. And at that moment, I'm trying to push past that and stand and be like, look at me, notice me. But if he sees me before that, I'd like to try and know that if I can.
He doesn't.
Okay.
The second you put out the energy of look at me, his eyes snap to you. He turns, not all the way away from Essie, as to not be rude. Mr. Everon, he says, answering her prompt. And who might you be?
I am Goldvos. Largely because that is my name.
He sort of looks you up and down, not judgmentally, but taking you in. You can see he's sort of matching information to what he's heard of you before. And you don't know what he's heard, and you don't know from where. You suspect maybe Essie, but all he says after sort of checking you out, head to toe, glancing at the Drua, glancing back to you, is the dead silence. Am I correct?
I pause a moment considering that question. That name refers to me. I look back at Essie and at him, and there's a creeping sense that I have to do something here. And the fear comes back, but it's not for me, it's for her. I have much to do. I must clean the creature. Prepare it for market before it spoils. But please, I would be remiss not to invite you inside. Perhaps if you would care for a drink, you would join me.
His mouth twitches like he wasn't expecting that from you. And he looks down back to Essie and says, "Thank you for your hospitality. But I've been invited and I cannot say no." And you notice, for the first time since you've been standing here, that he's been standing outside of the covering of Essie's porch, but he's not wet at all. He's perfectly dry. And Essie goes, "Well, of course. You know, I make a mean cup of coffee. But this one here," and she points to you, "I don't know how he does it. He makes it even better. We use the same beans, but our cups taste completely different. You would be a fool not to accept. Go on. And she makes eye contact with you. And there is a mischievous glint in her eye that she often gets. But you know that when he introduced himself as Everin, she knew that that wasn't his real name. To the degree of the white lie that she could perceive, you're not sure. You don't know if she just knows that's not his true identity. You don't know if she also recognized him as who he truly is. But she's not stupid. And she is prompting this interaction.
I take her hand, the tip of her wing, I suppose, and I squeeze it lightly but urgently. My eyes flash. I tip my head up enough that the shadow cast by the brim of my hat, it fades up my face until my eyes are revealed more clearly. You should get inside, my dear. Get warm before this storm gets worse.
She does have, like, opposable feathers on her wing, so she grabs it like any other person would. And she squeezes it. And you can tell that she's just humoring you. She has that face. You know her way too well to know when she thinks she's actually in danger, something bad is going on. But she's humoring you because she's worried about you. All right. I'll get a fire going. That'll ease your mind. And she gets up. She bows to Everin, says her goodbyes, and shuffles inside and closes her door. Etuvar watches this intently, taking it in and processing the dynamics. She is a wonderful woman. Very kind. You are lucky to have her as your neighbor.
I'm well aware. Please. I open my own door for him.
Did you kill the beast with that knife hiding in your poncho?
No. That one's for emergencies. This was a little more routine.
Then you shan't need it with me, I assure you.
Noted.
He doesn't react to that pointed comment. He goes inside. He even goes as far as to sort of wipe his feet on the little rug you have at the entryway. So, where shall we clean this beast?
With respect, I prefer to do such things myself. I know where each part is meant to go, who they're meant to go to, and how best to serve their needs with these fine spoils. But I immediately set to work. I place it down. I go into the chamber, but I close the door behind me and leave him alone in the other room. And I place it down. I place the body down on the stone slab where I do my work, and then I come back out. And immediately, scarcely even looking at him, I don't care what he's been doing in the few seconds I was gone, go into the kitchen, I pull out 2 cups, and I set to work brewing and making this coffee very intricately, step by step. And then I'm watching him the entire time. I don't need to see what I'm doing. This is handwork, and I know it well. And everything in its place. And as I do this, and I finish up and I place 2 cups on the counter and slide one toward him, I'll say, I have invited you into my home, so you have earned a drink. You deserve it. You are here. But please forgive me if my social skills are a bit rusty. I am not a one for mind games. It crossed my mind to stop and wait to see if you would reveal your intentions first, if you would tell me what you are doing here, or even tell me who you are. But I'm not good at those things. I never have been. So instead, I would simply ask you, why do I know you?
He stood at the door the entire time until you slid the coffee cup intended for him across the counter. Only then did he walk over to meet you and take it in his hand. I wanted to visit the place that my little girl grew up in. I wanted to meet the man she spoke so highly of. My visit is not purely selfish, though. I have advice for you, if you take it. And he takes a sip of coffee.
I hope you like vanilla.
She's doing well. She reached her destination and she got what she wanted, and now she's one of mine. Though I think you knew that. I wanted to come because she is lonely. And she spoke so highly of you. When you're done cleaning the beast, stay in the market longer than you normally would. I think you'll find an opportunity will present itself. And I cannot tell you what to do, but I think it would be worth your while if it's what you would want.
Your kind have not been so forthcoming with opportunities for me in the past. Its generosity is intriguing.
Well, we are not all the same. And I am nothing like my cousin.
Did she send you?
No, this is a proactive visit on my part.
You were right to say. I am not surprised to hear that she lives, or that she accomplished her goal. I knew this before she took the first step that she would succeed. But this black day vexes me. Your face vexes me. I don't know why. I don't know why my ears are open to you. Tell me, do you like the vanilla?
It is sweeter than I would like, but a good flavor, and it reminds me of someone. So yes.
Take the knife, the concealed knife, out, lay it flat on the counter, and slide it away to the opposite edge, just away from either of us. Take a sip. Place that down as well. I'll be there. With only weapons you can see with your eyes.
Is the pendant still hanging outside of the poncho?
Always.
I think you see his eyes drift down towards it, and he stares at it for half a beat too long before flicking his gaze back up to you. Glad to hear it. And he finishes his cup, sets it down in your little wash basin. Thank you for the hospitality. I hope we can talk soon. And he finds a shadowed corner in your house and so sort of fades into it, and you're left alone.
Talk soon. Talk soon. I start to walk around. I start to haunt this living room once again. But the acoustics in here are weird. My voice bounces all around these stone walls. Soon, soon. And then finally my hand comes to rest as it was gliding noiselessly across the walls. It finds the door into my chamber. We were talking now. Yeah. And I just shake. I just stand there and shake. I don't even know for how long. I just vibrate. But the tears never come. The scowl never comes. It's like trying to push through the soil of my face and never actually taking root. When the shaking stops, I open the door into the chamber loudly and begin carving up the beast.
You do so as methodically or recklessly as you think is appropriate. You carve it, you clean it, you separate its parts in order to deliver it to the butcher. When you exit again, Essie is in her house, and you see smoke billowing out from her chimney. She listens to you, and she listened to you again today. You make your way down towards the sort of central marketplace. It's a circular space that was carved out specifically to trade and barter for the various herbs, animals, goods, things that came from further down the mountain, traded in Laka and brought back up, such as coffee. You get to the marketplace. Because of the rain, not as many people are there, but the butcher is there as you expected. Tev is waiting for someone to come along. It looks like he's maybe been there for about 30 minutes. He's dutiful. He's passionate. Overall pleasant, if not a little put off by you whenever you two speak.
As I approach him, I do think there are these erratic actions. The feeling when something has interrupted your routine and you start thinking, well, anything can be wrong, and I have to check constantly. Like when you're checking your pockets for your wallet and keys every 60 seconds, even though you did it before, you just have to do it again, instinctively. The one domino that was missing has just made everything wrong. And so, while I'm still in that phase where I'm walking through the market, and all the people here, they know me, they know I'm here, but they don't see me. But you can tell in their movements, the way they step aside, that they know I'm here, and they're not unhappy to see me. But they are accepting, that they only half see me, and they're choosing to go the other half at my behest. And in that largely invisible space that I have, the privacy amidst this crowd, I continue doing those checks, those personal checks. And I keep looking, for whatever reason, in the bag. I keep checking to see that all the parts that I prepared are here and not magically vanished from me, from my person. And as I check them over, I check the skull one last time. And I look at it. And before I make myself known to the butcher, I just look at the hollow sockets where the eyes of the beast once were. And I say to it, "How fierce you would have been if you only knew. You scared me more than God." And I approach the butcher.
So you are trying to be seen
Now, yes.
as you approach.
Yeah.
Tev sort of has both elbows on his booth and fists bunched, holding up his cheeks. And he sees you approach, which is rare. Usually you just appear in front of him. And he says, Oh, hello, Vos. What have you got for me?"
Much. Just lay it all out.
And he takes the meat, of course. He takes pretty much everything that is squishy. And he leaves you with the bones. He says he can trade the skin with someone else, someone who often trades in Lhasa. He just has to wait for them to return. And it's a pleasant conversation. He asks about your day, he asks about your week, he asks about Essie. How is that old bird?
Well, all of my responses are short, precise as my spear is, but fluid as I walk. I don't ever seem to settle on his eyes either. I'm always drifting, sort of looking past him slightly, like even standing still, I'm in motion. So the responses are probably never as satisfying as he wants them to be. She is well. Out. Sitting out in the cold. On purpose.
Right. Well, can't really stop her from doing much else, I guess. And you can see he is uncomfortable, as he usually is when he talks to you, as most people are when they talk to you. They don't really know what to do with you, at least not anymore. A lot of them, they've lived here their whole lives, if not all of them have lived here their whole lives, and they remember a time where you were not like this. You didn't drift like this. You weren't cryptic like this. And everyone else is friendly. It's a small community. It's seemingly just you that they can't place anymore. But he's pleasant enough, and he's clearly trying, and he wouldn't ever turn you away. This ecosystem that's been created in this town. And you linger, you hit some booths that you don't typically tend to frequent very much. Some jewelry makers. You try to see what you can do to trade away these bones if you'd like, or you can keep them.
I would probably just keep a single rib bone that my spear cut a visible mark in. It's not useful to anyone. I'm not even sure why I keep it. I just tuck that one away. But I don't need any of the rest of it. And there comes a point, if I'm not mistaken, there's not a lot of town in this town.
Not a huge amount. There's Essie, of course, yourself, Tev, Reva, the town sort of doctor, alchemist, herbal healer whom you give the venom glands to. And then a jewelry maker, a cook who sometimes cooks for the whole town. If it's a special occasion, they're sort of like agreed upon that their cooking is the best, and so it's their job every time. And then some normal townsfolk, but it's not a huge amount of people. It's maybe 40 to 50 at most.
And I know it all very well. But I'm never here that long. I come, I do my business, I leave. But being forced to stay here longer is making me look at things I don't linger on. Doing that is making me think harder than I want to, because I'm exposed to the stimuli longer, so it's triggering memories. Things I don't think much about anymore. And I'd say on about my third lap around the place, because I've run out of things to do and I'm just waiting. But I can't just stand still. I'm uncomfortable because I've been here too long. Everyone knows I'm here now and I have nothing to do. I stop and I blink. I suddenly remember something. And it colors my whole face for a second. Like genuine surprise and then frustration. And then I go back to Tev and I say, Tev, excuse me.
Yeah?
I was just... no, never mind. Well, no, I'm... Do you remember? It must have been years, so many years ago. I was a boy. I brought you a rabbit with a single, had a brown spot on its back. And I brought it to you. It was it was the first time that I had killed a rabbit myself. And I brought it to you. I could have sworn that I had named it because someone had told me not to name something after it had been killed. Or before, for that matter. But I wanted to anyway when I gave it to you. And I can't seem to remember the name.
Well, that was quite a while. That was, what, 20 years or so?
If you say so.
And he, like, sort of thinks for a moment, kind of befuddled by this sort of question or, like, musing that you've brought to him. And he thinks really hard, and he's sort of mumbling to himself. And he's like, he says, I mean, I vaguely remember you bringing me a rabbit and saying, this is the rabbit's name and respect it. But I don't remember the, I think it started with an E. I don't know.
The entire expression, all of the color drains back to one. I apologize, a passing fancy. It matters not. Enjoy your day.
You do. I'll keep thinking on it.
I've straight up, at this point, stopped caring about what I was told and just start making my way to, like, fully leave the market.
As you go to leave the market, there is, a gaggle of other townspeople who have come to trade and see what are the wares. And you see that some people have sort of traded and bartered for and bought parts of what you brought today. And you see there is a sort of a rumbling amongst them as they sort of gather at the sort of path that would lead down further down the mountain towards Laka. It's a fairly well-maintained road, to your knowledge. You don't ever really travel it, as you have no need to. And you see a small carriage being pulled by mules. It looks like it would have normally been carried and pulled by horses, but mules have been traded in order to do this mountain travel. Very ornate, very sleek, very luxurious looking. And as these fellow neighbors, fellow townspeople sort of gather and start whispering amongst themselves. The mule-drawn carriage crests into the center of this market and comes to a stop. The carriage driver steps down, unfurls an umbrella, and opens a side of the carriage in which 2 guards come out and post up next to either side of the door. A very fancy-looking vampire steps out and down, sort of tisks at how mud gets onto their very shiny shoes. A lantern is brought up by one of the guards in order to illuminate this person and allow them to read the scroll that they begin to unfurl. They have bright red eyes, very obvious, prominent, shining fangs, lighter gray skin. It would be pale by your standards. Their hair is long and dark, but it's pulled up in a bun and tied behind them in a ponytail. Very fancy frou-frou clothes, frills and bows and a capelet that seems completely unnecessary, but is just there for the fashion. They reach into one of their pockets and pull out a pair of spectacles, place them on their head, and adjust them very obnoxiously to you as they unfurl a scroll and begin to read. Emperor Velen has decreed the need for more qualified servants of the Empire. All territories in the Empire are to request anyone who wishes to become a corporeal or otherwise servant to the great noble houses to make their way to Etiveras for the Ruby Calling, a competition of sorts that will determine if you are worthy to serve. If this interests you, please make your way to the entrance gates, declare your intentions, and in a month's time we will see if you are worthy to serve the Empire. They roll up the scroll, tuck the first one into their butt pocket, in their rear pocket, and then they reach in to the carriage with a very long, elegant 2 fingers and pull out a wooden box. It's thin and very plain, looks very stock, as if a bunch of these were made. They double check that the labeling is correct, and they look up, holding it in 2 hands, and they say, "Who here is the designated leader or authority of this town?" They sort of scan the crowd that has now formed, waiting for someone to identify themselves.
Well, what is the actual power structure of this town?
There isn't really one.
So there's no one.
It's kind of like a communal thing. It's sort of like when specific problems arise, the person whose like skill set is relevant is sort of put in charge of the matter because everyone turns to them for advice. So if there's sort of an illness sweeping the town, Reva would be turned to because she has an aptitude for healing and alchemy and medicine. I think you have built a reputation for yourself as a protector. You built Yali into something that is fortified and sustainable with your actions. And everyone knows that if someone needs help, if they have some sort of predator plaguing them, if they have any concerns about, oh, the fence has gone down here, or I'm worried that this will cause a structural problem here, they know that you typically care about that sort of thing. And so while there is no leader of Yali, when asked who is an authority, I think a lot of heads just sort of begin to turn your way.
Because I've been here long enough now to have lost my peripheral invisibility.
Yes, you've talked to almost everyone.
I think this entire time I've been hoping that no one has looked at me up until this point, because there's new people here and I would not want to be seen. And then everyone looks. I almost want to say, because yet again I am pulled to do something I would not normally do. All of this flashes in his mind for a moment, and yet another moment where he knows logically, where I know logically I should feel fear. I instead feel raw action before any logic or reasoning kicks in. I'm almost wondering if this is an act impulsively moment, because I do step forward without giving much thought to it, and then instantly surprise myself in doing so, and have to, pretend that that is not the case and that I meant to do this.
When you act impulsively, describe the emotion that drives you in answer 1. The GM will tell you something you didn't notice until now as they answer the other. What advantage do you seize? What trouble hits you hard and fast?
The emotion that drives me is only her. As soon as I'm able to stop and think about it, there's just her. Regret being replaced with opportunity, purpose. In this case, yeah, I think in this case I have no idea what trouble could hit me or befall me from this, and in this moment I don't care. So I'd rather name the advantage, I think. I want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, sizing these people up, this is a legitimate path back to her. I want to be 100% sure.
You scan the carriage and you scan the sort of presentation before you. And you also think about what Etuvar told you. An opportunity will come if it is what you want. And you see on the door that is now illuminated and has since been closed, there is a crest. And even though you are far, far from the center of the empire, everyone knows what the crest of House Villain, the ruling house of the vampiric empire, you know what that looks like. And it's there. And this person and these guards somewhere on their person. It might be on their armor. It might be a brooch. They all have this crest on them. You look down at the box that this person is holding. The crest is on there as well. These are representatives of House Villain, of the Emperor. This is a legitimate announcement. You don't really know what the ruby calling is. Hasn't really been explained to you yet. It's just an opportunity to serve the noble houses of the empire. But I think knowing what Etuvar said, how he knew who she was, telling you that an opportunity was coming and now it's here. You have no reason to disbelieve that this is some sort of ploy or trick or isn't true. I think what trouble hits you hard and fast is that everyone's looking at you. Everyone is expecting something from you. These representatives are staring you down as you are singled out, and they are judging you very actively.
The knowledge is all I need. I reach up, I take my hat off and press it to my chest in a form of salute, and I accept the consequences, whatever they may be.
The vampire delicately hands you the box and says, "Excellent. In this you will find everything that explains the ruby calling. If you have any questions, well, you may ask one of our representatives that will be staying in Laka. If you have any people here who you think could make a name for themselves serving the Empire, please, we invite them to come and prove it to us. We hope you have a warm rest of your day." And they take a moment and pause and look you up and down specifically. They take in the fact that you're only wearing a poncho. And so some of your musculature is very much showing. And they sort of take in your demeanor. And they check you out. We hope to see you soon.
It would be my honor. Nod.
They don't nod back. They simply twinge their mouth in approval. They get back in to their carriage. The guards follow with them. Their carriage driver picks up, and they begin to roll away. I think once they get out of eyesight, they crest down the hill back towards where you know Laka resides. There is an immediate buzz around you. Everyone wants to know, what is this ruby calling? What does it mean to serve the Empire? And what you find when you open the box is another scroll that basically explains what this event will be. The noble houses are looking for corpori, which are their bodyguards. They will also accept others who prove useful in other ways, but the primary sort of focus is to bolster those forces. It explains that there will be trials of wisdom, of endurance, of strength, that it's an opportunity to become something greater in the service of these noble houses. You don't know which noble house she belongs to, but you know that there is no way that she doesn't belong to one. Someone as talented and skilled and savvy as her, there's no way she would just fade into the masses. You know that if you go to this Ruby calling, if you fight and if you do well enough to get selected, to win, to survive, you will see her again.
I read this message. I come to that conclusion. I hand it off to the first person who wants it. And in that flurry of excitement, I leave. Quietly if I can, and as soon as I'm out of earshot, burst into a run all the way back home. I don't even see the house. I go straight to the door that matters, back into my chamber. But this time, I take the spear and I hold it up. I place it back on its display. But I keep my hands on it as I hold it there, and I look up toward the sky I can't see because I'm indoors, up toward the black of ceiling. And I just say aloud, I already made a name. I know because you know it. It's time I used it. And then I just take the spear back. But I don't sheath it. I just stay holding it. And I set to work. I set to work on preparing for a journey.
This event will take place in about a month's time, and you know that means you will probably have to leave either tonight or tomorrow in order to make it. And you set to work preparing, gathering any supplies you will need. And when you exit your home, you say goodbye. You close the door, lock it behind you. There's something wrapped in a leather pouch, and there's a note attached to it. It says, "You better make it back here in one piece. Love, E." And you can see that there is smoke coming from the chimney still. And you wonder how she knows that you're leaving.
I feel I feel the weight of her warmth once again. But this time, I fight the impulse to bury it with suspicion, trained skepticism. I push that aside and let myself feel warm. And I expect the smile to crack against my skin as an unfamiliar gesture. But to my surprise, it doesn't. It comes naturally. And I leave a small vial of vanilla extract in front of her door. No, I cannot think of anything clever to say. I'll think on it. And I go.
Godkiller Retribution is a Chance Encounters production. Your GM, producer, sound designer, and editor is myself, Asteria. The voice of Vos, our Godkiller, is Ian Frost. The voice of Osaki is Noir. You can find him on his own show, Rolling with Difficulty. Godkiller First Blood Edition is by Connie Chung. Available on itch.io for purchase. Music provided by Ian Frost and Monument Studios. Thank you so much to everyone who's listened to this first episode diving into the world of Koei. As many of you know, this is my first time in the GM's chair in a very long time, and it means the world to me that you are here, listening. We hope you like what you've heard so far and want to see and hear more. Thank you again, and until then, see you next time, lovers. Inky, dark water spills out from the windowsill and drips down, down, down into nothingness. Are you done?